Okay, let's just get on with this. Let me record. I don't know which ordering I'm going to be putting out these Idearena episodes in. I think this one's technically going to come out first, and the second one I think is going to come out like a week or so later. I don't know. I just know that I'm flying by the seat of my pants and need to get this kind of rolling so that I have it recorded because I have a lot of stuff on my plate as of late. So please, in order to give me some kind of affirmation or positive reinforcement for the fact that I am doing these things, please follow the road signs down here on the screen that I am highlighting at current. Like, comment, subscribe, consider joining the channel, consider checking out my merchandise store. I'm not gonna dwell on that super duper hard and long, but I did get another one of my t-shirt designs. I'm quite proud of this one. I like it. All of the merchandise that's up on Mount Merch as of the time of recording this video is made through artificial intelligence generated art, but this shirt, for instance, the MS Chan and the pile of clothing and the two Genos are all individually AI generated at their base, but then I'm almost positive I recolored the Genos so that I could have one that looks like Rogue and one that looks like Storm, and obviously I added the text myself and I kind of arranged it and spaced it out. I don't know how to put it myself. So technically, yes, it is AI generated art, but there was a decent amount of creative effort on my part as well to bring it together, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. I'm just proud of it. I like this shirt. Okay, so today we are going to be covering an Idearena topic, the character moveset. As I said in the other video that I don't know if it has come out or not, I want to kind of get ahead of the Godzilla Save the Earth Melee project because I don't know what they're going to announce next. So I kind of want to throw out my original ideas for monster movesets now before whatever they end up announcing. Okay, so this is going to be a duology of videos. This is going to be part 1, and I don't know when I'm going to record part 2 because of the kind of dynamic that I just explained with Godzilla Save the Earth Melee. This part 1 is going to be about Monster X because I have a sneaking suspicion that that is going to be the next monster. I've discussed in the past in previous Godzilla Save the Earth Melee related videos of mine that I'm not entirely sure what the thought process is behind the Nasty Soft developers for that project in regards to which announcements they're going to make, when, why, and which monsters necessarily are going to be added to the roster as a consequence of them. So I just kind of want to get my idea out there because my idea is not for that project specifically. As I have said in my previous Idearena episodes where I cover monster movesets, this is kind of just what I would ideally like to see. This is kind of what my own creative instincts kind of brought forth when I set out to come up with a Hypeworks Atari Golden Trilogy-esque spiritual successor Dream Godzilla 3-dimensional fighting game. Obviously, I am not a developer on any such project, but if, say, for example, the Gigabash developers, whose name I do not know, let me look that up. Gigabash developers. Passion Republic Games. If Passion Republic Games somehow got the green light to do a full-blown spiritual successor 3-dimensional Godzilla fighting game in the future, I want my moveset to be out there and available for the creatives behind that or any such project as it to review in order to kind of know what Godzilla fans and hardcore Godzilla fans want out of a Monster X moveset in that vein. Hopefully you understand what I'm kind of trying to get at. I've lined this out in videos in the past, but also because I brought up Godzilla Save the Earth Melee, this moveset is not necessarily going to be built for use in such an environment and use case as it specifically. That will become apparent as we go over it, but in general, there are things that the Godzilla Save the Earth Melee project iterated on from the Destroy All Monsters Melee Save the Earth kind of combat formula that I have carried over as I have in pretty much all of my movesets up until this point. So I don't think I'm going to waste time saying like, oh, they added this, oh, they added that. Watch my older videos in this sub-series banner if you want to hear me say it explicitly.
How come? Tell me why! Say it! Say it!
but took inspiration. I think many of the improvements were just that, improvements, but in certain contexts, you wouldn't see this moveset necessarily carried over one-to-one. You'd have to get a brand new Godzilla fighting game to see some of it. Some of it you probably wouldn't be able to see in any official product either, but again, this is just for the sake of putting it out in the public so that people can see it and discuss it and talk about it. So, you know, please do that. I would really appreciate it. Alright, so let's get into it. Monster X, as well as Keizer Ghidorah, who I will not cover in this video, do not necessarily all have full-blown alternate costume, alternate texture, alternate skin lineups. You'll notice here that there's a lot of recolors, and I did as much research as I possibly could into figurines and figures and sculpts of Monster X. Towards the end of the video, I will showcase all of these things in full, and I will talk about them to some degree, so you can kind of just glaze over that and ignore it for now. I will probably have a chapter for the video laid out that will specifically denote that it is for the skins, so skip to that if for some reason you really want only that information. Feel free to pause the video and read the text that I have written up in this document, because I'm not necessarily going to read verbatim from it. The other video that I have recorded that I have not finished editing yet is currently sitting at an hour long, and that video I didn't read from the document necessarily either. So if at any point in the video you feel like you want to read what I wrote there, that's probably going to be slightly different from what I say in the video, but both have their place. Do you get me? Do you understand? Okay, so in general and basically, I just want to kind of say that making this moveset for Monster X is kind of indicative of a general principle that the original Atari Pipeworks Golden Trilogy followed, that at least when I was preteen, I think got unfairly criticized. So let me kind of explain from a person that has obviously made a moveset for multiple characters in this style why it is that way. What way am I talking about? Well, not every single move or maneuver in this moveset is directly ripped from Godzilla Final Wars, where Monster X originally came from, originally debuted. Preemptive warning, I'm almost positive Monster X has shown up in fan films or short films that Toho has had play at G-Fest or something or other. The only thing that I used to draw a reference from for this, at the time of recording this video on September 20th, 2025, at approximately 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, was the original Godzilla Final Wars film. And as you can read in the text there, I guess you can really just boil it down to Monster X does not physically fight nearly as much as you would necessarily presuppose. So you kind of have to take some of the motifs and general themes of the moves that it does use and kind of its role in the story and use those things to build out the character's moveset so that you have a more fully defined moveset. I won't say that this moveset necessarily goes to the extents and lengths that the original Atari Pipeworks Godzilla 3D Fighter trilogy went to come up with new stuff, but I used a little bit of artistic license to give Monster X a kind of unique playstyle. I think those are two specific things. Firstly, Monster X has been described by many in the Godzilla fan base as essentially an anime villain. Ryuhei Kitamura and the other creatives behind Godzilla Final Wars clearly steered hard into the live-action anime kind of general stylings of Godzilla Final Wars. And like I said, since Monster X is not necessarily on screen for a sustained duration of the runtime of Godzilla Final Wars, I was like, well, how can I fill this out? And I might include a clip of it, I don't know, but remember there's that moment where Ozaki is beating up on the kid, the controller of X, I call him the kid, and you can see Godzilla fighting Monster X on the kind of view screen on the Zillion mothership, and it's kind of meant to show that Godzilla is mirroring Ozaki and vice versa, and the kid and Monster X are kind of mirroring each other. So I thought, well, since I'm having a hard time coming up with moves for Monster X, I may as well treat Monster X as one of the many anime-esque fighters in the human side of the story of Godzilla Final Wars for this moveset, and a little less connected to the humans and their fighting styles in Godzilla Final Wars. When Monster X literally first appears, in that rather iconic moment, he kind of slowly descends from, I guess, low Earth orbit and just aura forms the entire way down, and it's super duper iconic. I mean, everyone remembers that moment. But in order for it to make any sort of reasonable, logical, rational sense, Monster X should probably be manipulating / affecting gravity to some minor extent as it descends. I guess also because if it just descended to the Earth from great height, it would ignite and catch on fire in the process of atmospheric entry. Anyway, the point is, I use that very nitpicky and small detail to basically manifest the idea that Monster X can manipulate gravity to a minor extent and degree. So that should basically sum up what we're about to go over. Monster X is a ferocious hand-to-hand combat fighter, karate sort of guy fighter, anime fighter, and a kaiju fighter, mixed with a gravity manipulator. And I note here that some of, not very many of, but some of Monster X's animations and moves in its moveset, I basically pulled them from Ryu's moveset from Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, because as I have said somewhere in the past, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom Ultimate All-Stars on the Nintendo Wii was a large part of my childhood and adolescence. So figured Ryu's moveset and kind of what makes Ryu fit what I wanted to go for with a Monster X moveset. And by the by, a monster that I have not done an Idearena episode yet for, but I will probably record at some point in the future, has moves from another character from the Capcom side of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom in it. I will show those moves as we go through them. Okay, here's something that I have tagged with the idea tag, so to speak here. This is something that my younger brother and I kind of came up with last night while we were having one of our massive philosophical political rant sessions where we kind of bat ideas back and forth and we discuss things. He really helped me refine the gameplay mechanics and moveset of the character that I recorded a video for already, that if you are watching through the recording order playlist, you know the name of, almost certainly. I don't necessarily know if I want to go with this as the hard and fast theme of the Monster X moveset that I'm about to go over. I'm going to lay it out, but please discuss in the comment section what your thoughts are on the general notions that are present in it. Basically, my idea is that some of Monster X's physical moves can be reoriented through gravity manipulation so as to guarantee, quote unquote, that you will always land the sweet spot of any given attack that you throw out, and thus do optimal damage. The easiest way and the foremost thing that is coming to mind is Marth in the Super Smash Bros. Series of games. Marth has what is known as a tipper. So the best way to play Marth is to hit with the tip of the blade of his sword to get the most knockback and damage. It's not that you don't do knockback or damage if you hit with anything else in the sword, it's just that the tip of the sword is what is known as the sweet spot. If you space and land your attacks with a sufficient level of skill, you're going to commonly and optimally land the tipper hit of any given Marth sword swing. I wrote up this moveset without the following notion in mind, but it occurred to me that perhaps Monster X does not reorient its relative positioning to the opponent through minor gravity manipulation unless you hit the attack, like the input, and then hold the button down in order to kind of tell the game, like, I want to reorient this move during its animation such that it will hit optimally every time that I hold the button down. The moveset at the moment does not do that. It just has moves automatically reorient themselves for no cost or input differentiation. But I can imagine a world where you might want to land a version of a given attack that does not sweet spot. You might want to hit the regular part of the move or the sour spot, which is the negative part of an attack hitbox. These are all fighting game terminology terms. Look them up if you're at all confused. I'm not going to outline them necessarily. But I don't know if that's what I want to go with. I went over this moveset before I hit record, and I don't don't know if there are enough moves necessarily in Monster X's moveset here that would benefit from such a thing as this, but again, talk about it in the comment section if this at all intrigues you or changes your thoughts on the moveset. I can always go back and take off the idea tag and make this more complete in the future. I do like to go over my past documents of writing from time to time on this channel whenever I want to put out a video that gets paltry viewership. So just let me know what you think about that. Okay, so let us start out. Okay, the intro, I have done a sort of mock-up of what I would expect Monster X's intro to look like. If you didn't guess, it's basically gotta be analogous to its intro in Godzilla Final Wars.
Monster X!
It descends to the map, and the ominous music that we'll go over right now kind of plays. Whether or not it has the electric guitar or it's just the choir is irrelevant. The intro music that should accompany the Monster X intro should be either directly copy-pasted from or heavily inspired by Monster X appears by Nobuhiko Morino from Godzilla Final Wars. As I say here in the document, it's kind of inarguable. You can't really dispute that choice. Everyone knows that's what Monster X's intro should be. The exact, animation itself, does he twirl slowly as he descends, or does he just straight up and down descend? I don't know necessarily, but anyway, okay, so let's get into the actual moves now. So this is going to get technical, boys and girls. Jab 1, chop, kind of just like I said there, chop with the right arm. I know this is your left, but this is my right arm, so like this, and then jab 2. I want to say that it's kind of like lower body jab, so chop, lower body jab, but I can imagine a world where it's more like chop, jab. I'm not entirely sure. And yes, I do have legs. And then the jab combo finisher would be short arm clothesline. So basically Monster X, is it his right or left arm? I think it's his right arm. Basically jab forward, and the jab finisher is Monster X kind of goes forward like that and pushes into the opponent and kind of clotheslines the opponent in the process. So the kind of full jab combo is chop punch or low punch. I think it's more of an upper body punch, and then clothesline. So bow, 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 except obviously moving forward during that last one. As I note here, the short arm clothesline, basically if you land it on an unguarded, non-guarding opponent, it does what you would naturally expect a clothesline to do, and it basically face plants the opponent. And at the same time, it also puts Monster X behind the opponent, and he turns around. So, oh gee, I never even thought about how I would explain this. So, if this cup is the opponent, and my hand is Monster X, when you do the clothesline move, short arm clothesline, Monster X kind of pushes into the opponent. It knocks the opponent down, but Monster X kind of goes past them in the process, but then Monster X turns around to face the now prone opponent on the ground. Monster X is more of a kind of traditional fighting game kind of character, as evidenced obviously by the fact that I used many of Ryu's own moves to craft its moveset, but that is why many of these things are highly technical, because to me, Monster X is basically a combo fiend character. Like hardcore FGC people would love this character specifically, if you catch me. Jab back is 0G Slicer, which I note here is basically the kind of claw slash default jab back move that Godzilla 2000 has in the vanilla Godzilla Save the Earth, except obviously influenced by the amendments made in the Godzilla Save the Earth melee moveset for the character, where after doing the slashes, there's kind of a final grenade punch hit, fueled of course by Monster X's manipulations of gravity. And I think the idea I had was that if you whiff this move, you don't land it, the graphical gravitational pull particle effect flourish kind of indicates what happens, which is that there's kind of a light wind box that kind of pushes slash pulls the opponent in towards you as you execute the animation for the move. And I got highly technical, I think, because the last hit, I note, knocks the opponent into the air a fair distance away at approximately a 60-degree angle, though of course, as I note there, the exact value of the trajectory of that knockback would probably have to be tweaked and modified through balance testing / general testing of Monster X's moveset within this kind of thing, right? And then for jab up and jab down, I honestly don't remember how I laid a lot of this out. So jab up, pretty simple. It's basically like Godzilla 2000's jab up in the vanilla Godzilla Save the Earth, though I note here it's a hefty deal faster, kind of like Godzilla 2000's jab forward in the vanilla Godzilla Save the Earth. Godzilla 2000 wasn't the only character that had a move like that in Godzilla Save the Earth. I feel like saying 1972 Showa Gigan and Mechagodzilla 3 / Kiryu also had a move like that, but I'm not gonna check. I just have memories. I feel like I remember them doing that move. And jab down, I feel like is rather self-explanatory. It's just an uppercut, but I named it 0G uppercut to make it sound cool. I think the most interesting thing here is that I note that I think it's kind of a combo finisher in this moveset. I didn't line out like hardcore combo trees and attack lines, especially because if I don't recall correctly, some of these moves can be animation canceled, because that's how serious of a hardcore FGC character I wanted Monster X to be in this context. But the general notion is inoffensive. Oh boy, okay, here we go. So kick 1 is called high kick, which is identical to Ryu's pivot high kick with his right foot, 6C, in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. I do not for the life of me remember how to navigate this website. I think this is the move. 6C. This is so terrible. Yeah, I think that's the right one, because it goes high kick into sweep for the second. That would be this attack. Except, as I note in the document, I think I just have it so that it's kind of inverted, mirrored. I don't exactly know what the term to use there is, but you can read the text right there. I basically just flipped it. And then the kick finisher, kick back. So the kick back is brute knee, and I do believe that that move is roughly equivalent to this move, except obviously probably slowed down a little bit. Godzilla as a fighting game series does not need to have moves that necessarily come out as quick as that. I have a lot of technical stuff written down about brute knee as a move. I think the way I was thinking about it before is that brute knee is kind of just a combo filler move. Not to say that it doesn't have its use and its level of importance, but you kind of throw it into the middle of combo strings / juggle strings just to kind of keep it going a little bit longer. I think it has some utility if you just land it raw, but I think the primary purpose, if I don't recall correctly, was to make Monster X combo and juggle strings more flashy and intricate. Okay, so the move that I have thought the most about in regards to the gravity manipulation gimmick has been 0G Roundhouse. So I think of this move as being in much of the same vein as many of the roundhouse kicks in the base Godzilla Save the Earth, such as the one given to Mechagodzilla 2, the one given to Showa Gigan 1972 Gigan, the one given to Megalon, etc., etc. It was a commonly used / applied move for character movesets in the base Godzilla Save the Earth, and like I said, a lot of inspiration from Monster X's own moves comes from the fact that the human fighting and human combat scenes were focused on a lot in Godzilla Final Wars proper, so I thought it was rather appropriate to include a roundhouse kick. But whether that gimmick that I said that I wasn't sure about or not makes it in, I think you should be able to have Monster X kind of reorient itself. So if my hand is Monster X and this cup is the opponent, if you're literally standing right next to the opponent and you do this, you're kind of gonna push up against the opponent a little bit, and then you're gonna do the actual kick and the hitbox will come out and the move will play out. But I think it's worth considering that you're not necessarily going to land the sweet spot of the hitbox if you do the move right up against the opponent. You know, reasonably you'd have to start the move from not a substantial distance, but some amount of distance from the opponent, so that when Monster X, you know, kind of steps with one foot after a short hop and then kicks, it's gonna land perfectly, but only if you're at like a reasonable distance. But But with the kind of gravity manipulation gimmick, I thought even if you do the move right here, Monster X should kind of gravity manipulate its body mass such that it will kind of reorient itself so that the kick of the roundhouse kick will always land the sweet spot hitbox. Again, highly technical, and if you don't understand it, maybe hopefully somebody will actually comment in the comment section, and maybe people will actually show up in support of the algorithm for this channel. But that was the basic idea, is that Monster X kind of does a regular roundhouse kick like all the other roundhouse kicks that I mentioned in the base Godzilla Save the Earth, but because of its gravity manipulation property powers, it basically can alter its relative location in relationship with the opponent and force itself to land the sweet spot of the hitbox, if you feel me. For the kick up attack, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find footage of this from Godzilla Final Wars, but basically it's like a stair-step bicycle kick kind of thing where Monster X leaps a relatively short distance into the air and kind of does like bicycle kicks against the opponent. If I don't recall correctly, I think Ozaki or the Kid does a similar maneuver to the other during their fights in Godzilla Final Wars' third act. If I can find footage, maybe I'll use that. I don't know. But that's a very classically martial arts kind of move, and like I said, I think that fits the kind of motifs that I wanted to go with for Monster X's moveset here. For kick down, I have 0G Stomp, and wow, I wrote a lot for a basic stomp move, although I think it's not really basic, quote unquote. There is a particular shot from Godzilla Final Wars, which again, I may or may not include the clip of, that I'm kind of thinking about, and I kind of felt like had to be incorporated into this moveset. Basically, I think I thought that unlike most traditional stomp moves, this one incorporates the Monster X gravity flourish effect and properties, and it pops the opponent into the air such that you can start a combo juggle on your opponent if you land it. Now, obviously, if you guard, that isn't necessarily going to happen, but oh yeah, that's right, it even pops up prone opponents, so opponents that are laying on the ground flat, on their chest or on their back. But as I believe I explain in that text, if you land the 0G Stomp on a prone opponent, it does pop them into the air, but the window for kind of following up and starting a combo off of the hit is rather tight.
Tight, yeah!
So you're not going to just be able to throw out a stomp willy-nilly and hit an opponent that is laying on the ground and then get a full-blown combo extension off of it. Like, you have to deliberately be going for that kind of strategy and be thinking that sort of way in order to get that to happen. Okay, now we go to the fierce attacks. So, as I've said in the past, the fierce attacks in the Pipeworks Atari Golden Trilogy were basically the character-unique, character-specific kinds of moves. Godzilla got tail attacks, Megalon supercharged its drill hands, Gigan did spins and was generally unhinged as per the character's personality. So I think what I used here was the general notion of Monster X's propensity for twirling and using its tail and kind of intricately moving in order to land hits on the opponent, which was obviously Godzilla in Final Wars, but you get what I'm getting at. So the basic fierce attack is 0G Spin Assault, reminiscent of the first hit that Monster X lands on Godzilla in Godzilla Final Wars. If you've watched that movie, you know what I'm talking about. There's a small flourish of spark effects that accompany this move hitting the opponent, and it inflicts heavy flinch. I would imagine it probably doesn't knock the opponent super duper far away from Monster X, because much like the scene and moment in Godzilla Final Wars, Monster X is reasonably going to want to throw this out in order to kind of open the opponent up and start attacking into a combo and juggle. Fierce forward, Somersault Dive. So I doubt you are expecting to hear this next sentence. I basically compare the animation to the animation where Mario kind of dives forward and somersaults in Super Mario 64. If I'm not mistaken, I was probably watching a history of speedrunning records video by Summoning Salt around the time that I wrote this manual and this plan, roughly. Basically, Monster X throws itself forward and kind of does a front flip, and its tail kind of comes over its body during the animation, which I am poorly explaining, and slaps the opponent with its tail as part of the somersault dive forward. This isn't particularly complex. I just don't know how to explain it very well, if you can't tell. I do note, though, that landing the attack unguarded pops the opponent up into the air. If this is the ground, it pops them up a decent distance into the air, and the reason for this is that, much like most of Monster X's moves, this is meant to be a combo starter slash combo enabler, and Monster X kind of has to stand back up and return to its idle stance after it does this somersault dive attack. So the only reason it pops the opponent up into the air is so that when the opponent is falling, Monster X is kind of standing back up so that it can continue its assault on the airborne player. Fierce back is Gravity Tornado. I don't want to say this is a strictly projectile move, but Monster X basically spins kind of like in the basic Fierce attack, which may be reason why the comment section should weigh in on these moves and tell me if they're any good. But basically, Monster X does a short hop into the air and a spin, and I'm thinking like the color of this Xbox controller, kind of bluish purple, gravity effect tornado kind of plays, and it's thrown and it goes towards the opponent, and when it hits, it doesn't necessarily do damage per se. It doesn't really cause a whole lot of flinching, but it kind of pulls the opponent towards Monster X so that you can get back into a hand-to-hand combat kind of combo juggle rhythm, for lack of a better way of putting it. And I note, it's not even really necessarily all for landing on an unguarded opponent, because if you land it on a guarded opponent, the gravity tornado kind of pulls the opponent in towards Monster X, and I guess in that sense, one of its utilities is that it kind of helps enable block pressure, guard pressure. Okay, for Fierce Up, we have Backflip Spark, which I'm not going to reread it, but I'm pretty sure it's basically the somersault dive, but you don't move forward, you stand in place, and Monster X kind of does a backflip in place. Mentioned in the description for that, animation cancels. Like I said, I didn't do like a full-blown kind of combo tree outline of how this would look. I'm not necessarily inherently a fighting game hardcore player, fighting game designer, so the comment section might be able to help me a little bit with understanding this, but I kind of just wanted to come up with general maneuvers that made sense for the Monster X character to execute.
Give 100%, we executed.
And then Fierce Down is 0G Sweep Slap, which is basically just a low sweeping kick, except it uses Monster X's kind of spaghetti noodle tail. And like I said and have described previously, if we imagine the camera is over here, so your left, my right, the attack kind of goes like this. It goes from this side to this side. Okay, now we're getting into the fun stuff. And when I say fun, I mean very difficult stuff. For R1 or right bumper, we have the primary weapon ability, which is Destroyed Thunder. You guys know this. This is Monster X's basic beam attack. I didn't write it here, so weigh in the comment section because I would probably appreciate that. I don't know if this would even necessarily be able to beam battle, because it's technically two streams of gravity lightning, not one or three combined into one. I'm not so sure. I feel like for fun factor alone, you should be able to beam battle with it because it is one of the more beefy beam attacks, I feel like, but again, I'm not entirely sure. For the tap weapon ability, so tap R1 or tap right bumper, Monster X kind of takes a knee. There's a very particular moment in Godzilla Final Wars that I'm thinking of that this would mimic, and it kind of creates a fireball. I don't know exactly if this should be a long distance fireball. I imagine it should be a fireball that kind of comes out and it kind of hovers a short distance in front of Monster X and then disappears. It's not a full-blown micro-oxygen detonation mine like Destroya has in Destroy All Monsters Melee and Save the Earth, and obviously in Save the Earth Melee. Let me know what you think. I mostly just wanted to ape/reference/mimic that moment in Godzilla Final Wars where Monster X kind of takes a knee, and I don't think it should be a carbon copy of the primary weapon ability. For the secondary abilities, so for R1, L1, L1, R1, left bumper, right bumper, left bumper, however you want to say it or explain it, I have Gravity stunned. So I'm remembering there's a moment where the kid kind of spins in place and kind of lifts, I think, Ozaki up into the air a brief distance through, at least as it appears, a manipulation of the local gravity. And then I think he like takes his cape and whacks them or kicks them. As I described here, I basically wanted to have this be identically / analogously represented in Monster X's moveset, where Monster X kind of uses gravity manipulation to briefly push the opponent a short distance back and kind of put you into a very, very, very brief, dizzy, stunned state. I think Megalon has it tied to Fierce Down in the base Save the Earth, where it kind of digs into the ground and it stuns you for like a split second. I think that's what I was kind of trying to mimic with this move. Again, it's kind of just a method of opening Monster X up for potential combos and juggles after the fact. Okay, so now it looks like, if I can find my mouse, we're getting into some of the intricacies of this, however briefly. So if you were to do this in something such as the fan mod project Godzilla Save the Earth Melee, you're not going to be able to get Keizer Ghidorah into the game, because that would require animation skeletons and such be built from the ground up to support a character with that many limbs, and you're not necessarily going to do that in a mod project such as that. I imagine this was also why Monster X and Keizer Ghidorah were not present in Godzilla Unleashed on the Wii, because I don't know necessarily if the Wii was powerful enough from a hardware standpoint to include a Monster X transforming into Keizer Ghidorah gimmick mechanic. So I wrote up this kind of pseudo-plan draft moveset for Monster X and Keizer Ghidorah with a sort of cop-out backdoor styling, where I have one version that includes the transformation gimmick and I have one version that does not include the transformation gimmick. Most of the moves in the moveset don't really hinge on or rely on the existence of the other character, so to speak, in order for it to make sense and work. So I wrote up two just in case. So the primary ability, L2, R2, left trigger, right trigger, is called Keizer Ascension, and I basically just had it mimic that moment in Godzilla Final Wars where I believe Ozaki kind of ascends and it goes, "You're right, I do have a choice. And remember, we're not cattle, we're humans." And he's kind of glowing gold and it's kind of very anime-esque. Basically the idea I had is that Monster X kind of glows orangish gold, kind of like when it starts to transform into Keizer Ghidorah, and you kind of enter a sort of amped up Super Saiyan-esque kind of pseudo-transformation state, where if Monster X could not already be described through this moveset as a combo fiend, when you activate Keizer Ascension, Monster X becomes even more of a combo fiend character. And I believe I even note that moves that kind of cause light flinches before are altered to do more heavy flinches, and I think stuns are even necessarily roped into all of this. I'm not going to read it verbatim. And as I say with many moves, all the time it feels like balance testing would probably be required in order to find out what the exact properties and modification of properties are applied as a result of Keizer Ascension being applied to Monster X. In a version of this moveset where Keizer Ghidorah is actually legitimately involved and utilized in the transformation gimmick, the name doesn't change. It's still called Keizer Ascension, but I basically have it so that, yeah, L2, R2, left trigger, right trigger, transforms you into Keizer Ghidorah. But I note here, as is the case with Mothra and Mothra Leo and the Mothra Larva character within Godzilla Save the Earth Melee as of the time of recording this video, you can transform from Monster X to Keizer Ghidorah, but you can also transform from Keizer Ghidorah back into Monster X. That being said, I imagine there would be some form of limiting gimmick / mechanism to this system. I imagine most of the limitation on how much and how often you're allowed to transform from one form back into the other would depend on hardware limitations, because as I note in that version of the move, there's kind of a burst of energy. It can't be a one-to-one representation of the transformation sequence from Godzilla Godzilla Final Wars, because there would need to be some kind of particle effect flash, much like the Mothra cocoon in the case of the vanilla Save the Earth, that kind of conceals the loading in of the three-dimensional model and the data required to play the character in that game within the context of this hypothetical 3D fighter game. Again, much like the actual Atari Pipeworks Godzilla Golden trilogy of fighting games, you kinda have to, as a consequence of the environment you're designing and developing this moveset for, take a little bit of liberty, and I think this kind of is okay in that respect. But I don't know to what degree you would want to limit the player in regards to the frequency of transforming from one to the other and back again. Maybe you have to empty the entire energy gauge, like an entire full energy gauge has to be expended in order for you to transform. Just a thought. That would be a little bit weird. Weigh into the comment section, tell me what you think, because that would probably necessitate that doing the transformation would cause you to load into the new form, quote unquote, without any energy whatsoever. Maybe that makes sense. I'm not sure. Tell me, please. I just thought of that on the spot because I realized that I don't think I have a mechanism already written down and incorporated for that particular instance. Wow, okay, I have been recording for over an hour and 10 minutes. So let me try to wrap this up fast. The reason this video is only part one of a hypothetical two-parter is that I will cover Keizer Ghidorah if people are interested sufficiently in another video. I don't want to record, especially considering how long this video has been recording for already, 2 monster movesets in one video. It would be colossal, and I don't know if I have the willpower and energy capacity to do such a thing. So if you want to see the Keizer Ghidorah standalone moveset as a follow-up to this video, let me know in the comments. Okay, jump punch, knee drop, fist pump. So I believe this is one of Ryu's attacks in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom Ultimate All-Stars. I don't know if this is the move exactly, but I think this is the move this is supposed to be mimicking and the move that it is inspired by. Again, like I said, slow it down a little bit, but I believe it says here that this move can land even if you're grounded. So even if you're standing on the ground, I would imagine the, like, elbow part of the attack can hit you. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I wrote this moveset plan down. And like everything else, one of its many purposes is to facilitate combos and juggle. Then jump, straight kick. Let me find the move first. I believe this is the move. Again, it's kind of got to be slowed down, but it's just a regular jump kick. Jump straight kick, even. Also, for the record, I note that it causes heavy flinch, but like with everything else, balance testing would probably debunk a lot of my preconceived notions about what each attack should do. I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to find out that in this dream world, this moveset actually functions perfectly as is, but I doubt it would. And then jump fierce is spin descent, much like many of the other spin moves where Monster X slaps the opponent with its noodle spaghetti tail. I didn't note that that one causes opportunity for a combo to start, but I would not be the least bit surprised if that was what it would ideally be useful for. Okay, kick throw. So, unlike the last character I did a moveset on, I think Monster X should just be able to grab and hoist the opponent like every other monster in the Atari Pipeworks Golden trilogy of Godzilla fighting games. Except for, I guess, Godzilla Unleashed. Godzilla Unleashed did things a little bit differently, but destroy monsters melee and save the earth, that kind of grab. I have it described there. I can't really think of a better way of doing it and describing it. He spins around and kicks the opponent after pushing him up into the air a little bit and letting him go, and then, you know, kind of twist and then bow. Fierce throw, rapid rotation assault. I like that name. RRA. Just rereading this, it really sounds like a move that Frieza from Dragon Ball Z would use. Basically, the fierce throw, Monster X kind of pushes the opponent up into the air a short distance or holds them in relatively the same position that they're in when you input the throw. And the gravity manipulation flourish effect kind of plays, and the opponent is kind of held there, and Monster X kind of ascends to kind of be next to them as they kind of hover there. And I'm imagining Monster X kind of rapidly spins and hits the airborne opponent like 4, 5, 6 times in a row. There's probably a lot of sparks and whatnot. And then the last hit is kind of anime-esque, where Monster X kind of slows down and then slaps the opponent and kind of turns its back to them as it knocks them to the ground. Remember, Godzilla Final Wars, like I said, was very much live-action anime in many respects. So Monster X's moveset and stylization should mimic that kind of anime-esque nature in whatever way it can. And then for the Getup attack, Monster X basically, it's lying on the ground either on its back or on its chest, and it kind of frustratedly, I guess I would describe it thusly, slam its hands into the ground by its sides, and the gravity manipulation powers would cause, I'm thinking kind of like the nuclear pulse rage moves for Godzilla 90s and Godzilla 2000 in Destroy All Monsters Melee, just obviously recolored, and it would sweep the opponent much like Godzilla 90s and Godzilla 2000's own Getup attacks in Destroy All Monsters Melee and Save the Earth. Except obviously it's not a tail sweep, it's a gravity shockwave kind of deal. For the rage move, I have Gorath Impact. So in my head, Monster X is kind of like writhing like this, almost as if it's in pain, but not really, and its eyes glow intensely and suddenly as it does so, and it's essentially equivalent to the Godzilla 2000 nuclear pulse in Save the Earth and in Save the Earth Melee, except you color it gold yellow, and it kind of mimics the impact of Gorath meteor impact moment from Godzilla Final Wars. Probably described it way more than it really deserved to be described, because it's pretty simple. Then for Taunt 1, Crackle of Menacing Glee. I basically would just have Monster X kind of do the ah ha ha ha, you know, the sort of anime girl oh ho 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 kind of thing, except I would have it look kind of similar to that moment, and this is gonna sound so bizarre, where Monster X and Godzilla kind of show each other their necks when Monster X kind of breaks Godzilla's arms and lifts Godzilla up. Does he break Godzilla's arms in that moment? I don't know exactly, but you know what I'm talking about, where he goes like this and you hear Monster X basically is just cackling with confident glee. Taunt number 2, Gravity Concentration. I would basically just have this be roughly equivalent to Captain Falcon's up taunt in, I believe, every game that Captain Falcon has been in. I'm not entirely sure about Melee. I know it was the up taunt in Super Smash Bros. Brawl and Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and for the 3DS. But obviously, instead of fire and flames, it would be the kind of bluish purple gravity effect kind of energy particles, you know? And then for Taunt 3 is Smokeshow, which I compared to Bowser's up taunt in, I believe, again, all of the Super Smash Bros. Games, where it's kind of in reference to the moment where Monster X first appears after the impact of Gorath in Godzilla Final Wars, where it kind of is breathing out smoke, and again, just kind of aura farming in the process. And then for the skins, so I did scroll down and have them show up on the screen a little bit. Oh, no, see, Keizer Ghidorah is down here, but for the Monster X skins, I basically just had to recolor the Monster X concept art in the Paint.net environment according to my own tastes. If there are any other recolors that I should have done that I missed, please let me know. But I think a basic Monster X, a Monster X that's kind of inspired by the color scheme of Keizer Ghidorah would be appropriate, especially if this game is in a context where they don't have the transformation gimmick between the two of them. This is kind of a spoiler for that future recording of a Keizer Ghidorah Monster Manual, Keizer Ghidorah moveset that I haven't recorded yet, but I don't really have these paired up, so I don't know which Keizer Ghidorah skin that would even apply to. Anyway, I have a kind of Sonic the Hedgehog blue and black Monster X. I think that one's kind of inspired by the fact that Keizer Ghidorah kind of turns a sort of pseudo cobalt blue when it starts absorbing Godzilla's energy in Godzilla Final Wars. Obviously, that's a Keizer Ghidorah moment, but they're basically the same character in the movie, if not literally. So I thought giving Monster X a kind of energy drain blue, atomic blue recolor made some semblance of sense. Then I have a black, leather black recolor for Monster X. Everyone always mocks Godzilla Final Wars and its cast of villains and its rendition of the Exilians for basically going full-blown Matrix with the amount of leather that was incorporated into the costumes of the human and human-adjacent characters. So I thought it made some kind of sense to give Monster X a kind of leather color. Then after that, I have a yellow one, which I called Bumblebee. It's kind of more of a classic Showa Ghidorah or a Heisei Ghidorah gold kind of color scheme for Monster X. Then I have a blood red, so can't really think of another way of putting that. A blood red color, and then I have a, quote, gamma color scheme. The Hulk has gamma radiation. The Hulk is green. You can figure it out. And then the last one is a recent addition, so I'm pretty sure I added this either last night as of the time of recording this video or the night before that. This is such that I don't know if a project like Godzilla Save the Earth Melee could necessarily include it, but it's basically just the basic Monster X, except he has the wings that kind of sprout out when he starts transforming into Keizer Ghidorah. I don't necessarily know if wings of this sort would need to be animated on top of everything else. As someone who has played a hefty amount of The Sims 4 on PC and downloaded a lot, and I do mean a lot, of custom content, I think I'm just kind of numb to seeing things that should probably be animated as part of a character's model not be animated. But I wanted to throw it into this roster of alternate costume skins because I do think it would be relatively interesting to see the kind of winged version of Monster X be a selectable character skin, but I don't necessarily know if you would actually see such a thing ever actually make it into a game. And like I said, I'm not going to go into it, but I do have a full-blown moveset and plan for Keizer Ghidorah drawn up already. I'll probably record it at some point, but as of the time that I iterate this, I have been recording this video for 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 25 seconds. So the video is probably gonna be pretty beefy overall, even after I edit it down. So wish me luck with that, because I don't necessarily know how quickly I'm going to be able to get that out. I also want to record a random rant video either tonight or tomorrow, and I don't exactly know when I'm gonna do that, but I have a regular full-time job, as I have said in the past. I just know that Monster X is cool. I drew up a moveset for Monster X, as I would like to see him in a three-dimensional Godzilla fighting game, and I want to kind of get out in front of any potential announcements in the future so that ideally we'll be able to look back on this and kind of compare this to whatever official form of this character we eventually get in a three-dimensional Godzilla fighting game. I'm almost positive the YouTuber Professor Thorgy, who I used to watch on the regular, included Monster X in his kind of dream kaiju fighting game roster. So I just wanted to throw my hat out into the ring, however large or minimally populated it may be. And like I've said numerous times, I want people's feedback, and I want people to tell me what they think of this kind of general idea for a Monster X three-dimensional Godzilla fighting game moveset plan. Framework? I don't know. I've been recording for like an hour and a half, okay? Multiple sclerosis takes its toll, and I ran out of Sunny Delight Tangy Original Citrus like 30 to 45 minutes ago. As I have said, please support the YouTube channel through any of the mechanisms that I have highlighted and am highlighting now. I know I said I wasn't going to do it again, but I really do like this t-shirt. I say this all the time to people. Join the club. We have t-shirts. Basically saying like, join the club. I actually have plans later tonight to go hang out with some friends of mine that I have mentioned in previous videos, so I don't want to keep recording for much longer because I do need to go take a nap at some point. I am an old man at 28 years old as a consequence of the multiple sclerosis. So, on that note, I unfortunately have to depart from you, and I would like to say that I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you had fun. Please leave your comments, and take it easy along the rest of the journey of your day. And until next time, guys, I will catch you on the flip side.
good teacher. He really seems to care about what I have no idea.